Alright YouTubers, what's going on? Coming back at you again with another video on the Glock 43. And today we're going to look at the various different options for +2 base plates for the Glock 43. Giving you 2 more rounds. One of the biggest complaints people had when the Glock 43 was released is that it came with a 6-round magazine, which, you know, industry standard at the time was at least 7, sometimes 8. You had the Shield, the XDS, the PPS, quite a few guns that had more magazine capacity. So that was people's biggest issue. But quickly, you know, before you knew it, you had a bunch of +1s. You had the Terran Tactical +1s that were the first out in the market. Then you had a couple others. You had the Pierce, which is on what you see on there. So then all of a sudden a lot of the +2s started rolling out. So I thought, you know, a good idea for a video would be to compare all those different +2 extensions, kind of give you my you know, idea what I think is the best one. They're all good. Here's the thing, I'll tell you right now, none of them are a bad choice. So let's go ahead, and what I did is I kind of compared them on different aspects of each one. I did it based on cost, how easy they were to install, the length they added to the grip, which I think is really important, the performance of each one, like if they had any issues feeding, how hard they were to load, quality, aesthetics, you know, how they look, basically weight, how much weight, you know, how much they weigh, and I think ease of installation. I think I had on there easy also. Well, I think I might have already said that. If I missed it, I might have already said that, install. So quite a few different aspects, and I kind of just scored them based on all those things. So we'll kind of go over those. First of all, we're going to talk a little bit about each one. So first we're going to start with the Terran Tactical, mainly because it's the first one that was released on the market. This is one of the ones I carry. So it does have bullets in it, but you know, no bullets, no guns means no harm. So I love the red. It's awesome. That's one thing I will give the Terran is it is the best looking of the bunch. It uses this pin to secure it, so you basically just slide this on, and you push this pin up so it can't come off. It's a really good design. It has a lot of these come with their own magazine springs. This being one of them. They first originally used the stock spring, the Glock spring on this. +2, and it had some failures to feed from testers, so they went with their own magazine spring, and it so far had no issues at all, I don't believe. So and it's the most expensive of the bunch. It's $35, but it's also the highest quality, so you know, kind of get what you pay for. The Hyde, or the Hive, HYVE, was the other one that caught my eye because it was also anodized aluminum. I went with the gray color just to mix it up a little bit. It uses the stock spring, so there is no additional spring, but the bummer on this one is you do have to modify the magazine. You do have to cut off the little tabs. I can't really see them. Let's see if you can see them. Yeah, you can. You can see these little the tabs. All Glock magazines have these little tabs to secure the base plate. I don't know why they do that. It's kind of annoying, but you have to just file those off. I just used a pocket knife, cut them off, and it works great. Then it just slides on, and it uses the factory base plate. Not base plate, magazine, I don't know what you'd call that, the little piece that's in the bottom of the magazine that connects into, you know, this little button right here. I can't remember what that's called. Floor plate, magazine floor plate, there we go. So it uses the stock one. It's also very high quality anodized aluminum, and it adds +2. I mean, there's not a lot to say about this one other than that. We'll go over some of the other specs, you know, how it compares to the others in a minute. Next you have the Vickers Tactical. This is actually a new one on the market, probably the newest. +2. It's also one of the least expensive options. It's pretty much just a basic polymer. It does use its own spring as well, and adds you know 8 rounds into the magazine, which is great. It's the least frills of any of the models. It's pretty much the most basic one. So a lot of people will choose this just because it's less expensive, and it does the job. You have the Ghost. Ghost is known for a lot of Glock parts, especially their disconnectors. And I like this one quite a bit. It uses the stock floor plate, has its own spring, uses the stock floor plate, and basically this part slides on over the tabs, so you keep the tabs intact. and then you slide the stock 4 plate over this part. So it does add a little bit more length than I think it needs to, but it does have some similar texturing to the Glock 43, which is nice for your pinky. The nice thing is all these give the Glock 43 an additional grip. So if you have bigger hands, and you know I have no problem shooting with the flush magazine plate, but the idea here is to add more magazine capacity. And the last one I'm going to review is the Strike Industries. This is the longest of the bunch and the largest. I like the texturing on this one; it's great, and I like this little, lip here for your finger. But it also is the longest and adds the most bulk to the gun. So those are the ones we're going to talk about. So cost-wise, the Terran is the most. The Vickers, like I said, came in at $14. Actually, the Strike Industries that you can get for pretty inexpensive. I think I paid about $14 for that as well. The Ghost was $18.50, and the Hive was $22. So if you want something that's anodized aluminum, this is a really good buy because it's about $13 cheaper than the Terran, and it does the job really well as well. It's just a little bit bigger. So installation, like I said, I mentioned a lot of these had their own extra springs. The Strike Industries was super easy. I mean, you literally just took off the factory base plate, slid this on, good to go. Uses the stock spring. It was the fastest, easiest to install. The Ghost was also very easy, like I mentioned how you installed that one a second ago. The Vickers was easy also, just had its own spring that you had to swap out, so you had to swap out the spring and follower. So it just takes a little bit more time, not a big deal. The Terran is also very easy to install. It has its own spring. Take off the factory base plate, slide that on, push the pin up. You're in business. The Hive, like I said, was the worst, and just because you had to modify the magazines, and I think that'll turn some people off to these, is that you do have to modify the mags. So your length added, I thought this was a really important metric, just because it, a lot of people when they conceal carry and they're carrying a Glock 43, they're probably trying to, the reason why they're carrying such a small, slim gun is they're trying to, easily conceal and not, have to worry about printing. Especially good like in a shorts and a t-shirt or something. The shortest of the group was the Terran Tactical, and it's honestly, you can see the Pierce +1 extension here. I measured both of them, and I think the Pierce is .798, and I used digital calipers for this, and that's just how much length it adds to the magazine. And the Terran Tactical was actually less, and it sounds funny to think that, but actually what I did is I measured the longest point, so I measured from here to here on each magazine, because a lot of them have this finger rest right here, and that does add, when you're carrying this in your waistband, that's going to poke out a little bit. So I measured from there to there, and the Terran +2 is actually less than the Pierce +1. So if you're looking for, it seems weird when you look at it visually, it seems bigger, and it is like, basically from here, but from this point here, which is what I measured on all the magazines, it's actually the shortest, even more than the Pierce +1. So that was another good selling point for that one. The next shortest, I believe, was the Ghost. Yeah, it was the Ghost. And I think because it uses a very similar design to the Terran, where it's kind of just a flat. But you have if it didn't have this extra using the Glock base plate, it would be even shorter. The Vickers, I believe, was the next. Let's see. I'm referencing my notes here. Nope, it was the Hive. This was the next shortest. Added like over 1 inch, just barely over 1 inch to the magazine. The Vickers was 1.1, and it's just because it's a little taller right here. It's just the design. They're also different. It was actually kind of difficult to measure them equally, and so that's why I went with that 1 point on all of them. And then the Strike was the longest. It was 1.2, almost 1.3 inches long. So it adds a ton of length. Not a ton, but a substantial amount versus these other options to the magazine. Performance-wise, they had, and I'm gonna roll in some footage here in a minute. They had 0 failures to feed on any of the magazines. And the video I did, I think 2 magazines full, but I've also shot all these quite a bit more. I would say, at least 100 to 200 rounds each magazine extension, and they none of them have had any failures to feed at all, which is great. Ease of loading, I will say that they're all very easy to load, minus maybe Terran, that last round to get into this is kind of difficult. You have to use like a magazine loader, like the Glock loader that comes with it, or your like your Upalula. That's what I usually use. But the rest I can just load. Those are single stacks. I can just load easily. This one, the last round, is a little difficult to get in, but I think that's just because of the spring tension, and that will break in over time. So I'm not terribly worried about that. So performance-wise, they're all performed perfectly, guys. I mean, they're all good options, like I said earlier in the video. Quality-wise, the Terran and the Hive are going to be the top of the line there just because they have a nice anodized aluminum. They just have some good heft to them. They just feel really well made. They're going to last a long, long time. But these polymer options are also very well made. I would give the, like I said, they're all pretty similar. They're all using a similar type polymer. They're not going to be much different from each other on that aspect. Aesthetics, definitely the Terran Tactical is the best looking of the bunch. And a lot of guys aren't going to care about that, but some guys do care about that, so that's why I included that metric. It's just the best looking, best quality. The Hive is close behind with its nice anodized aluminum as well. I just like the design of the Terran a little bit better. And then after that, I would kind of go with the Ghost. I think it looks a little bit nicer than the Vickers. And I went with the Strike last just because it's big and bulky. It's over what it needs to be on a single stack magazine. I think it looks more like a double stack magazine extension than a single stack. So, and the Vickers just kind of is pretty bare bones, basic, but it does the job. So, weight, the Vickers and the Ghost were the lightest of the bunch, which is not surprising because they're polymer. And of course, the heavier ones are going to be the aluminum ones. The Hive was the heaviest at almost 3 ounces, 2.8 ounces. So it's actually a little bit, it's 0.4 ounces heavier than the Terran Tactical. So the Terran is just getting a lot of points here for being the best so far. The Strike Industries was 2.3, so it was a little bit more than the other polymers, so I kind of put that towards the bottom. And like I said, there's just a lot of extra material on this that's not necessarily necessary. Overall, I scored them based, how they stacked up and all those things. And, surprisingly, I thought, oh, the Terran's going to take this. It just has more scores. But it got some negatives because of its cost and the ability to load the magazine. So it actually scored a little bit lower than the Ghost. The Ghost was actually the highest scoring. I should say the lowest scoring. It had the lowest average score. Adding up all those categories based on how it performed and placed. Surprisingly, the Ghost was the lowest, but I still prefer, I think, of all these options, the Terran Tactical. Even though it's the most expensive at $35 a pop, it adds the least length to the grip, which is important to me. It may not be to you. You may not care about that. You may want more grip, so there may be one of these other options that's better, like the Strike Industries adds the most. That might be the best for you. For me, the Terran Tactical was the choice. The Hive's really good too, and it's a lot less expensive than the Terran, but I just didn't like the fact that you had to modify each magazine. So that kind of took it down below the Terran, I think, and it's a little bit extra weight as well. If I was going to choose a polymer option, I would go with the Ghost. Just because, I mean, the Vickers, either one. The Ghost is just a little bit nicer, has some nice texturing. This is pretty bare bones basic. I mean, you could stipple it and, have a nice grip on it. But it's just the cheapest option. So if you're on a budget and you want to just add +2 and don't care about all those other things, then go with the Vickers. Like I mentioned, they're all good options. Like I said, I just prefer the size and the quality of the Terran. My least favorite one of all of them was the Strike Industries. It just kind of scored lowest on everything almost, except for maybe cost. I think it was tied with the Vickers. It just adds too much bulk to the gun. The one thing I do like on it is it does try to mimic the texturing of the Glock onto the base pad all over the place, even on the back, which was a good thing, but it just, for me, added too much bulk and just scored lower on a lot of the qualities there. So, like I mentioned on the Hive, I like that one quite a bit, but didn't like having to modify it. The Vickers was the cheapest, and it worked well. It's just the most bare bones and basic, just doesn't look as good as some of the other ones. And the Ghost is really a solid choice all around, but a little bit overpriced for being polymer. So, all of them, like I said, you just got to make a choice. It's all going to come down to personal preference because they all function and perform flawlessly. So if you're willing to pay the little extra money for the higher quality Terran Tactical, then that's going to be kind of my choice. I mean, I'm going to use all of these. I'm not going to like get rid of any of them. This is the one I carry as a backup. I know it sounds funny because I mentioned that this is about the same length or a little bit shorter even than the Pierce at that point, but I prefer the Pierce +1 for concealed carry. We'll drop that magazine, just, you know, safe gun here. There you go. I just prefer it so far for a +1. Plus they're $10. They're awesome because they're cheap. If they came out a +2, I'd be all over that too. They have a little bit of texture in there, and they're $10, so you can get them from all your magazines and have a +1. I have 6 total mags. You can see them all here, and I have one with the +1, and the rest have the +2. A lot of that's for the range, and then I'm going to have one backup mag I carry, which is the Terran, with the +2. And sometimes I'll just carry the +2 and have one of these other ones as a backup. So it just depends on the situation, but overall, they're all great options. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that video footage in, just kind of showing you the testing of these magazines, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Alright YouTubers, what's going on? It's Friday, 75 degrees. We're out shooting and we're out testing all the +2 mag extensions we covered earlier in the video, just to see if there's any issues with feeding, if any of these, and that's going to kind of affect my overall review. So we're going to do some shooting. Here I got a target down range. See how this goes. Apparently my target stand, which is homemade by the way, it didn't work so good. So the Terran Tactical fired all 8 shots. We'll go fix our target. We'll be back. Alright, next up is the Hive. All 8 rounds function perfectly there. We'll do the Vickers Tactical next. No issues there. How about the Ghost? No issues there. The last is the Strike Industries. Zero issues. So we're gonna load up some more mags. Be right back at it. All right. Fresh magazine, Terran Tactical. 8 shots, no problem. We got Strike Industries. Just grab whatever next in my pocket. No problems there. So far so good on all of these guys. That was the Hive. Thought I'd do a quick mag dump to see if I could maybe get it to malfunction, but no problem. Vickers Tactical. No problems there.
Here's what they all look like in the gun. I think that might be an important thing to go over. So this is what the Terran Tactical looks like installed in the gun. This is what the Hive looks like. You could find these pictures online probably, but why not do this for you? Oh, and another thing to mention on the Terran Tactical is you can't use the grip plug. Actually, I have one. I had to uninstall it, but it was okay. So the nice thing about the Hive, that gives you that plug right there. So let's look at the Ghost. So you have that. I kind of wish they would extend this out a little bit more, because it just kind of goes straight down. It kind of looks not as good. So it's just a aesthetics thing. The Vickers and the Strike. The Strike almost kind of looks factory, but it's like just too much bulk. They needed to cut down. It's just a little long. So, but again, if you got big hands, and you want something with a little bit longer, but like the slim carry of the 43, then this might be the one for you. Alright guys, so you saw some footage there shooting. All of them worked flawlessly, no issues whatsoever. I haven't heard really any negatives on these particular models. There is a couple other options. I believe there's one other option. The Glock store has some +2s, and you also have to modify the magazine. And it actually had some pretty negative reviews on it for functionality and stuff, so I didn't even buy one just to test it, just because I thought, well, if it has a lot of these bad reviews, it's probably not a good contender, save my money there. So and then there's the other option, is the mag guts. They just came out for the Glock 43 recently. They're pretty popular. You can actually use the factory base plate, so if you want to run the flush magazine and gain +1, you can do that with the mag guts, which a lot of people are going to like. I just kind of prefer the extra length of some of these extensions, so that's why I didn't really compare them. And it's not an extension, so I didn't buy it for this video. But that's also another option. So there's tons of options. That's the best thing about Glocks, guys, is that there's so many aftermarket options. I mean, you've never seen more +2 extensions come out within the time frame of this gun coming out than you have with a Glock. I mean, the other comparable guns just don't have the aftermarket support that a Glock has, and that's one reason why you'd want to buy one. I have quite a few Glock 43 videos. I have a playlist, so check that out if you're interested. This has become my go-to choice for concealed carry in the summer months, and since we're gearing up towards that season, I wanted to, get some more +2 mags and just kind of get ready to roll. So if you have any questions or comments, real quick, I'll just kind of show you my Glock 43. This is the Talos edition. It has the Ameriglow front fiber optic sight with the orange, and then it has the tritium insert as well. Then it has just a blacked out rear kind of a U. Really dig these sights. That's the only difference between this one and the regular Glock 43 is the sights, really. But it's definitely a worthwhile upgrade, because it was cheaper to buy this model with these sights than it was to upgrade aftermarket sights. So there you go. Any other questions, guys, or comments, leave them down below. Appreciate you watching. See you on the next video.